something completely different.
No. Despite what he might think, Rob does not enter into every conversation that we have.
Hello, everybody. We just saw the trailer to Side Quest, and now we are going to talk to the creative team behind the show. So this is an anthology series with all but one episode centered around characters that we haven't previously seen through the show. What was the impetus for creating these specific characters in these specific situations?
Yeah, part of the conceit of the show when we were kind of coming up with what Side Quest could be was the idea that if Ian and Poppy and the characters in Mythic Quest were gods, these were sort of the mortals that are always getting kind of screwed over by the gods in all of the myths, because we're so focused on the workplace of it all. But every decision that they make has repercussions on the fans and the other employees that maybe we don't spend a lot of time with, but have come to know in some of the episodes. And just what does that mean to them to be a rabid fan of a game that is being controlled by people who sort of have their own agendas going on and aren't always thinking, even though they are very fan forward in creating the Mythic Quest game, sometimes their egos get in the way of what could be a better story and a better outcome for some of the people that come to rely on it and love it.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of normal people involved in making a really popular game and creating a really popular game. And it's interesting to see a lot of it through their lens. So one of the hallmark episodes I've seen people point to a lot as perhaps their favorite was Dark Quiet Death, starring Kristen Milioti and Jake Johnson. Do you see Side Quest as kind of continuing that kind of storytelling rooted in the gaming industry, but not necessarily tied to, Mythic Quest's main story?
Yeah, totally. And Katie wrote that, by the way. That was definitely the popularity of that episode was definitely what started this show, frankly. That episode does such a great job of showcasing a creative relationship and the pitfalls of creative relationships. And so we sort of took that into Side Quest of how can we make something funny that's in this world that really tells a story that's either about a relationship with creativity, about a community. And so that's been the impetus of a lot of the episodes that we made for this particular show.
I was going to bring that up later because I noticed a uniting theme that, they're all separate stories, but it was people's relationship with creativity and their passions being something that is troubling to them, but also kind of the only thing they love and know, and having a troubled relationship with that. Is that something that was personal to any of you here?
Oh, no. I don't have any issues with my creativity.
Every day is a dream. Yeah. I'm so lucky to be here. Having a front row seat to these three is, they've never had a question or an issue guess in their life. I mean, it's just, no, but genuinely, I love watching I am not a writer on this show, and yet all three of these are extraordinary writers, and getting to watch them sort of grapple with what it is to be creative while excelling at a very high level of creativity is really, it's cool because it's like, I don't know, it's like building a car and you're the car.
To take over what it's like. It's good. It's true. It's like you're when you use something that's a part of your personality also, which is like if you're a creative person or a funny person, and then you try to make that your job, what you're sacrificing is any days off ever, really, because you've now intertwined these two things. And so I always laugh when people say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, because I would argue it's the opposite. If you really love what you do, you don't take any days off. When you fail at work, you feel terrible and you take it home with you. So definitely all of that bleeds into these shows where we can understand that for a lot of people, gameplay is their creative expression. It is how they show the world their personality. So when things go wrong in their games, or when the powers that be are screwing up their games, it feels like they're screwing up their lives. And so that made the drama so much higher and realer for Side Quest.
Mm-hmm. Which episode was conceived first?
The Last Raid.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. It was the first one that we came up with. Yeah.
I mean, we'd built Mythic Quest, the game for the show Mythic Quest. And you from the very beginning had thought, what if we get to see more of that? What if we get to live in that world?
I feel like was that John's idea, maybe? John Hal Harris?
That came from, a lot of how SideQuest kind of came to be was that we were in season 3 of Mythic Quest. We were just blue sky pitching ideas for what the standalone episode for that season could be, and we just filled the whiteboard up with like maybe this, maybe this, maybe this, and then we looked at it and it was like, well, this should just be its own show. And because there's so many great ideas that we wouldn't be able to explore fully in Mythic Quest, so it needed kind of its own space to live. And so that the last raid came about because of a story that we had heard about some in-game situation that became very real in the outside world as well. And then we combined that with wanting to just have an episode that was completely in-game. And then we had an original road trip story where it was about a group that was breaking up. And we were like, well, and again, that's part of the creative process of what can you jam together to then all these kind of disparate pieces that like, actually, if we put these together, you'd have an even more compelling story.
We also felt like, since we knew we wanted it to be in game, we had no idea how that was going to work. And when we assumed it was going to be like animation, it would take a long time. So we're like, well, let's break that first. We were correct. It took a long time.
I wanted to look at episode 1. That was with Song and Dance with Derek Waters, Phil. What made you decide to bring Phil back?
Phil. I mean, like the long-suffering art director, and Derek is so great, and he's just so funny in Mythic Quest and all of his other projects. And so for this, it was like, yes, of course. If we want to have a character that's going to bring us into this world, then it's Phil. And because I think we can also, as Ashley said about the last raid, where we wanted to find these universal experiences, and who hasn't felt underappreciated in their job. But then also to tie it into what happens when you're kind of using your job as an excuse to not progress in other areas of your life where you feel a little less confident. So he was a good conduit for a universal experience.
Was his emotional interpretive dance scene inspired by the one Rob did in It's Always Sunny?
No.
It was inspired by something completely different.
No.
Do you want to tell this story of Jason?
So one of our dear colleagues that was at Ubisoft and helped Mythic Quest to happen, Jason Altman, he was working for Just Dance, and he had to go to Japan, I believe it was, and present to them. They had some updates that they were doing, so he was there to kind of present them, and they was like, okay, do the dance. And he was like,
Just Dance.
What? And they were like, Just Dance. And he is like the most like just reserved, kind, sweet, gentle, behind the camera, does not want anything to do with it. And he finds himself dancing it was for the cultural board or something, to make sure that it kind of went in line with cultural sensibilities. And there he is, just dancing his ass off in a room full of people. I mean, his literal nightmare. And we were like, absolutely, we are stealing it. So as Megan says, you never take a day off when neither do the people around you. I will mine your trauma for our comedy.
That's terrible. Like, oh, that's so sad you went through that.
All right, for episode 2, Pull List, it's centered around a Black comic shop and is based around fandom and being a nerd within the lens of that specific community. Tell me about getting this episode made and finding the right writers to put it together.
So we had Javi Scott, who is our writer's assistant and co-wrote that episode, and then Leanne Bowen, who is one of our co-EPs. We really wanted to tell a story in the Black nerd space because it's such a massive community, and Black culture is its own culture, and that cross-section we thought was like really interesting and really fun. And Javi is a Black, he's maybe the nerdiest person I know. He's so nerd. He taught a bunch of our cast members literally how to play Magic the Gathering during the filming of that episode. So it really is a love letter to that community. It's very much inspired by Javi's experience. So that was really the impetus for it. And man, we got lucky with that cast also because they just gel like they've known each other forever.
I just thought it was so brilliant what you did with, it sort of to me was like a meditation on gatekeeping and how you see a community that never felt like they had a space, and then all of a sudden they feel like they have this space that's just meant for them. And then they in turn sometimes become the bullies that keep other people out of this space. But you can totally empathize with how they became that way while also understanding like, oh, you've become the thing you've hated now, that that so watching that episode, like I felt myself so pulled in, and I so felt that struggle. So I thought that was just like this brilliant episode where you're like, yes, it's so, who gets to, if it's a safe space for somebody, how mean can you be to outside people in order to keep your safe space? And where's the morality of that? Like, I loved it. I thought it was brilliantly acted and done. You know, bottle episodes typically work because you've had seasons to set up who characters are before they're all stuck in a room together. So the fact that you created characters and kept them in a room together and made us care about them all within one episode, brilliant.
Ah, that's nice. Thanks, Megan.
Well, this is it. Thank you all for joining me today, for going overtime with me today. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Megan, Genevieve, Katie, Ashley. Side Quest will be dropping on Apple TV Plus on March 26th.